The stars had always called to humanity. Since the first time a human stood on a quiet hill and looked up at the night sky, they wondered what lay beyond. For thousands of years, people built stories, dreams, and machines, all for the sake of touching that faraway light. When the first ships finally left Earth, there was celebration. Humanity believed they had joined the family of the stars, but the galaxy did not welcome them. There was already a great order in place. HFY Council of Alien Civilizations who claimed to protect balance in the universe. To them, humanity was a new and dangerous child. They watched human history and saw war after war, blood after blood. They saw a species that had risen through violence, a species that could adapt to suffering and grow stronger from it. When humanity finally stood at the doorway of the stars, the Council shut it in their face. The decision was swift and merciless. The Council declared that Earth would be a restricted world. No human ship would be allowed beyond its own system. No colony rights. No trade, no alliances. Any human vessel found outside of Sol would be destroyed on sight. The Council called it necessary containment. To them, it was the only way to keep peace in the galaxy. To humanity, it was exile. At first, Earth fought back with words. Leaders begged, argued, even demanded a place in the stars. They reminded the galaxy of humanity's art, music, science, and compassion. But the Council looked only at the scars of history, not the beauty. Every plea was met with silence. Every argument was ignored, and so the centuries of silence began. Generations were born under the shadow of that ban. Children grew up pointing at the sky, asking why they could not go there, and parents had no answer that eased the pain. Humanity was forced to watch other species build empires among the stars, while Earth remained chained to its skies. The ban was more than a law. It was humiliation. Humanity, proud and curious, was treated as dangerous animals. Alien ships flew near Earth's orbit as if to remind them of their cage. Trade ships from other worlds avoided Earth as if contact alone was poison. The stars were alive with voices, and humanity was forced to listen from the outside. For some, this exile crushed hope. People whispered that maybe the Council was right. Maybe humanity did not belong among the stars. Wars on Earth slowed, but not because people grew wiser. They slowed because humanity's spirit had been broken. Yet deep inside that wound, another feeling began to grow. It started as anger. Quiet at first, then louder. A defiance that spread through generations like fire through dry grass. Parents told their children, "The galaxy fears us because it knows what we are capable of." Teachers told their students, "They ban us not because we are weak, but because we are strong." Humanity learned something important during those silent centuries. They learned patience. They learned to wait. And most of all, they learned how to dream in secret. Beneath the surface of Earth, in old mountains and forgotten bunkers, whispers turned into plans. Nations that had once hated each other now spoke with one voice. If the galaxy would not open its doors, humanity would build its own. They would not beg for permission. They would not wait for acceptance. They would create something that the galaxy could not ignore. The beginning was small. A hidden project known only to a few. Engineers, scientists, and dreamers worked in secret, away from alien eyes. Every breakthrough was guarded, every failure hidden. The world above went on as normal, pretending to accept exile. But underground, a new destiny was being forged. Children who grew up hearing the stories of the ban were taught another story as well, of resistance, of pride, of building something that no council could ever stop. Humanity's anger was no longer wild and reckless. It was sharp, focused, directed. The galaxy thought the ban would break humanity. Instead, it gave them a century to prepare, and when the time came, humanity would rise again. Not with a whisper, not with a plea, but with a roar so powerful that the stars themselves would tremble. For now, the galaxy slept in its illusion of safety. The Council believed they had locked Earth away. They had no idea what was being built in the shadows. No idea that the very species they had tried to bury would one day return. And when that day came, Humanity would carry a name not of shame but of defiance. We were banned from the stars, but we built our own path to them. The secret began like a spark, a whisper between leaders, a plan too bold to say aloud. If the council believed humanity too dangerous, then humanity would not prove them wrong with chaos. They would prove them wrong with creation. Beneath the surface of the earth, far away from alien eyes, the greatest secret of human history began to take form. Old mines were cleared, ancient bunkers reopened, and entire mountains hollowed out. Inside those hidden chambers, the sound of machines echoed day and night. Sparks flew, engines roared, and humanity's greatest minds worked in silence. The project had many names. Some called it hope, others called it defiance. But among the people who built it, there was one name whispered with pride: Wrath of Terra. It was not just a ship. It was a dream carved into steel. At first, progress was slow. Humanity was clever, but the galaxy had centuries of head start in technology. The Council believed Earth's exile meant humans would stay behind forever. But they underestimated something powerful: human adaptability. Every scrap of alien information that slipped through trade, every glimpse of alien technology stolen or copied, became fuel for the project. Scientists would study a single fragment of alien tech for years, reverse engineering it, improving it, reshaping it into something new. Humanity was not just learning from the galaxy, they were outthinking it. Generations grew up inside the project's hidden halls. Children who were never told fairy tales of princes or dragons instead heard bedtime stories of engines, reactors, and stars. They grew knowing their lives had a single purpose: to finish the ship that would carry humanity beyond its chains. It was not a life of luxury. The underground halls were cold and full of endless work. Families lived in small rooms carved into stone, always surrounded by the hum of machines. But for them it was sacred. Every bolt they tightened, every circuit they connected, every blueprint they completed brought them one step closer to freedom. The Council thought Earth was silent, broken, and forgotten. But below, humanity was louder than ever. Not with words, but with action. Every nation gave something. Some gave steel, some gave fuel, some gave minds. The world that once tore itself apart with war now worked with one purpose. Humanity's greatest strength had always been its stubbornness, and now that stubbornness was aimed at the stars. The Wrath of Terra began to grow. First it was a skeleton of steel beams. Then came the engines, massive structures that could bend space itself. After that came the weapons. Humanity did not design them for conquest, but they knew the truth. If they came unarmed, the Council would destroy them before they ever spoke a word. The ship was to be both shield and voice. Decades passed. Those who had started the project grew old, their hair turning gray in the glow of reactor light. But their children continued the work, their hands steady with the same fire. Whole generations were born and raised without ever seeing the open sky. For them, the ship was not just a project, it was home. The Wrath of Terra became a legend before it was even finished. Songs were written about it, whispered in secret across Earth. Young lovers promised each other that one day they would walk the halls of the great ship together. Soldiers who once fought wars promised their children a better fight, the fight for freedom among the stars. Humanity was not building a ship. Humanity was building a symbol, and yet with every success came danger. There were spies, traitors, and whispers of discovery. The Council never learned the full truth, but sometimes alien ships passed too close to Earth, scanning its surface. The people of the project worked with fear in their hearts, knowing that if the Council discovered them too soon, everything would burn. But the fear never stopped them. It only made them work faster. When the Wrath of Terra finally began to take shape, it was unlike anything humanity had ever seen. It stretched like a mountain forged from steel with engines the size of cities. Its halls could carry generations. Its weapons could pierce the strongest shields, and at its heart a reactor glowed like a captured star. The ship was alive with purpose, humming with the dreams of billions. It was the sound of patience turning into power. Humanity did not know the exact day it would rise. But deep inside, they all knew one thing. When the wrath of Terra left Earth's soil and touched the stars, the galaxy would finally hear humanity's voice again. And this time, it would not be a plea. It would be a declaration. The day finally came when the wrath of Terra was ready to breathe. For more than a century, humanity had worked in shadows, hidden beneath mountains and oceans. They had built a dream so large that even the Earth itself seemed too small to hold it. Now at last the final weld was complete. The last circuit was sealed. Generations of sweat, sacrifice, and faith had brought them here. It was time. Crowds gathered across the world, though few truly knew what was about to happen. The project had been a secret, but whispers had spread like wind through the grass. People sensed that something powerful was coming, something that would change everything. In the hidden valley where the wrath of Terra slept, thousands of workers stood in silence. Families pressed against railings, holding their breath. Children climbed onto their parents' shoulders to see. For many of them, it was the only home they had ever known. The ship was their cradle, their school, their reason to keep moving forward. At the heart of the ship stood Commander Alara. She was not born on Earth's surface. She was one of the children of the underground, raised in the steel hulls of the project. Her first steps had been taken on the cold floors of the unfinished ship. Her first words were spoken under the hum of reactors. To her, the wrath of Terra was not just a vessel, it was family. She placed her hand on the control panel, her eyes steady and bright. The room around her held the senior crew, pilots, engineers, navigators, all born to serve this moment. They were not chosen by politics or titles. They had been raised for this destiny. "Begin ignition," Alara said softly. At first there was silence, then the deep rolling sound of the ship's engine stirred. Lights rippled across its vast body, glowing like veins of fire beneath steel skin. The ground trembled as the wrath of Terra drew its first breath. The ship was alive. Engines the size of cities roared to life, shaking mountains, sending winds across valleys. Clouds split apart as the wrath of Terra rose, not like a fragile vessel but like a titan that had been sleeping too long. All across Earth, people looked to the skies and wept. For centuries they had been denied the stars. Now their answer rose above them, brighter than any sunrise. The wrath of Terra lifted higher, higher, until its shadow covered the valley and its roar filled the world. Children shouted and clapped. Elders cried openly. Soldiers saluted with trembling hands. Humanity was no longer caged. From orbit, alien scouts saw it too. Their sensors screamed warnings, their comms filled with static. The images they sent to the Galactic Council were unbelievable. It wasn't a ship, it was a fortress, larger than anything ever recorded. A single human vessel that looked as though it could hold an army. The Council panicked. They had believed humanity broken. Now they saw the truth. They had given humans centuries of silence, centuries of patience, centuries of time to sharpen themselves. And this was the result. Inside the wrath of Terra, Commander Alara stood tall as the ship broke free of Earth's atmosphere. For the first time in her life, she saw the stars with her own eyes, not through pictures, not through filtered glass, but real and endless before her. Her throat tightened. She whispered, barely audible, "We are home." Her crew echoed her words. Some pressed their hands to their hearts. Others wept at their stations. The stars were no longer forbidden. The ban was broken. Humanity had risen. But Alara knew this was only the beginning. The galaxy would not greet them with open arms. The Council would see them as a threat, perhaps even an enemy. Already reports came of fleets being assembled, of weapons preparing to fire. The wrath of Terra was not built to conquer. It was not made to destroy. But Alara knew it would need to fight, not for power, not for domination, but for the right to exist among the stars. "Set our course," she commanded. "Let the galaxy see us." The engines burned brighter. The stars stretched before them. and humanity for the first time in centuries sailed free. The Galactic Council had ruled for thousands of years. To them, the galaxy was a carefully balanced machine, every species in its place, every world under order. They believed themselves wise. They believed they had seen everything, but when the first reports came from the Sol system, the council hall fell into chaos. Scouts described a human vessel. At first, the council laughed. Humanity had been banned for centuries. What could those primitives build? A small ship? A desperate attempt to escape their cage? It would burn in the void before it reached the stars. Then the images arrived. The wrath of Terra filled the council's displays. Its size dwarfed the greatest dreadnoughts the galaxy had ever produced. Its engines glowed like small suns. Its hull carried weapons the council did not even understand. A fortress, a titan, a storm wrapped in steel. The laughter died. Silence spread across the hall. "This is not possible," one delegate whispered. "They should not have had the resources. They were forbidden. They were broken." But humanity was not broken. Humanity had risen, panic spread. Some demanded immediate action. "Destroy it before it grows stronger." Others hesitated, fear written in their voices. What if we cannot? What if the stories of their resilience are true? The council's leader, a being of silver skin and sharp eyes, stood and raised her hand for silence. "We gave them exile to protect the galaxy," she said coldly. "And now they return carrying war. They have proven us right. Humanity is dangerous." But deep inside, even she felt unease. Across alien worlds, people began to whisper. Ordinary citizens saw the images too. They did not see a monster. They saw a miracle. A people banned from the stars. Abandoned, forgotten, yet somehow strong enough to return with a ship greater than any other. For some species, it was terrifying. For others, it was inspiring. A merchant on a distant world murmured to his son, "If humans can rise from exile, maybe so can we." A soldier in a far-off fleet whispered to her crew, "Look at what they built. We could never do that." The wrath of Terra was already changing the galaxy, not through fire but through example. Meanwhile, on Earth, humanity prepared for the storm. The council would not stay silent. Scouts had already seen fleets moving. The wrath of Terra was powerful, but it was one ship. The galaxy had thousands. In the warship's great halls, Commander Alara gathered her people. They stood in silence, the glow of the stars shining through the windows. Every face carried the same weight, fear, pride, and determination. "The council fears us," Alara said. "They will come. They will try to destroy us. But remember this, we are not here to conquer. We are not here to burn. We are here to remind them who we are. They locked us away. They thought they had silenced us. But today the stars will hear our voice again." Her words echoed through the halls and the crew stood taller. They had been born for this moment. Far away, the council fleets gathered. Hundreds of ships, sleek and deadly, moved into formation. Their admirals whispered orders. "Surround them. Crush them before they can spread." But not all agreed. Some captains hesitated. They had seen the wrath of Terra, and something in its presence unsettled them. It was not a weapon of conquest. It was something deeper, something forged from patience and pain. For the first time in centuries, the galaxy's fleets faced a choice: obey the council, or listen to the quiet truth stirring in their own hearts. The wrath of Terra glided through the dark, its engines leaving trails of light across the void. Its weapons slept, but its presence was louder than any war cry. Commander Alara stood on the bridge watching as the stars grew brighter. She knew what was coming. The galaxy would not welcome them, not yet. But she also knew something else. Fear could be powerful, but respect was stronger. The council feared humanity. Soon the galaxy would respect them. The silence before the storm was ending. The council had seen humanity's strength, and the first confrontation was near. The wrath of Terra moved silently across the edge of Sul, its hull glowing against the darkness. Humanity had risen, but the galaxy had answered. The first fleets appeared like shadows in the distance, hundreds of ships, sleek and silver, stretching across the void. One by one more arrived until the Wrath of Terra was surrounded on all sides. Their formation was perfect, a cage of steel and fire. From the bridge, Commander Alara watched the displays as alien signatures filled the screen. Her crew shifted uneasily, but no one spoke. They had been raised for this. They knew the day would come when the Council would arrive with all its strength. Alara's voice was calm. "Status? All systems ready," replied the chief engineer. Weapons charged. Shields full. Engines steady. They were prepared for war. But Alara's heart was heavy. She had not brought this ship to destroy. She had brought it to be seen. The Council fleet opened communications. The voice that filled the bridge was cold and sharp, like metal scraping against glass. "Human vessel, you are in violation of galactic law. You were forbidden from the stars. You will power down your engines, surrender your weapons, and return to Earth. If you refuse, you will be destroyed." The crew looked at Alara. Silence pressed against them like gravity. The fate of humanity rested on her words. Alara stood tall, her hands clasped behind her back. She looked at the stars beyond the glass, then spoke. "We do not seek war," she said. Her voice was steady, carrying the weight of generations. "We seek acknowledgement. You locked us away. You said we were too dangerous, too unworthy to walk among the stars. So we built our own path. This ship is not here to conquer. It is here to remind you, humanity endures." Her words echoed across the comms, reaching not just admirals and soldiers, but the crews of every ship in the Council's fleet. The Council's reply was swift and cruel. Empty words. "Your ship is a weapon. You threaten the peace of the galaxy. Stand down or we will erase you." At those words, the Wrath of Terra shifted. Its vast shields pulsed with energy, and its weapons lit up like stars awakening. Cannons the size of towers turned outward. Missile silos opened, and beams of light glowed along its hull. The ship did not fire, but the message was clear. "We will not go quietly." Gasps spread across the Council fleet. The Wrath of Terra looked like a sleeping beast baring its fangs. Inside the human warship, the crew felt the air tighten. Fear pressed against their chests, but so did pride. For the first time in their lives, they were not hiding. They were standing. On one of the Council ships, a young alien captain stared at his screen. He had been told humans were monsters, creatures of violence. But what he saw did not match the stories. The human commander had not spoken with anger. She had spoken with pain, with pride, with longing. This was not a monster. This was a people who had been caged for too long. Other captains felt the same. Whispers spread through the fleet. They only want to be seen. They built this just to exist. Are we really about to destroy them? For the first time in centuries, doubt cracked the Council's iron control. Back on the Wrath of Terra, Alara's voice rang out again. "You can fire on us. You can destroy us. But know this, humanity is no longer silent. If you end us here, others will rise. Our children, our children's children, will remember this day. You cannot erase what we are. We were banned from the stars, and yet here we stand." Her crew erupted in silent tears and clenched fists. They were not begging. They were declaring. The fleets held their positions. Weapons were armed. One command could unleash fire across the void. The galaxy waited for the first shot, but no shot came. Not yet. The Council leaders shouted orders, but not every captain obeyed. Some lowered their weapons. Others pulled their ships back. Fear was still there, but something stronger was rising. Respect. The confrontation was not over. War still hovered in the air. But the Wrath of Terra had done something no one expected. It had made the galaxy hesitate. The Wrath of Terra floated in silence, its massive frame glowing like a sleeping giant among the stars. Around it, the fleets of the Galactic Council stood ready, weapons armed, engines burning, waiting for the order that could decide the fate of humanity. Every second felt heavier than the last. Inside the human ship, Commander Alara kept her eyes fixed on the endless void. Her crew sat at their stations, hands trembling but steady on controls. They knew a single shot fired at them would mean war. A war humanity could not win. The wrath of Terra was powerful, but it was one ship against thousands. And yet no one on the human bridge looked defeated. Their faces glowed with the same fire, the fire of a people who had already survived exile, silence, and humiliation. If this was the end, they would not meet it begging. They would meet it standing. On the council side, the admirals argued furiously. Some demanded immediate destruction. Fire now, crush them before they spread like a plague. Others hesitated. They have not attacked us. They stand only to speak. One admiral slammed his clawed hand against the table. Do you not see? That ship is a weapon. If they built one, they will build more. Humanity will become unstoppable. But another voice, quieter, shook the hall with its truth. Perhaps they already are unstoppable. You caged them, yet they returned stronger than before. If we destroy them now, what do we create in their place? Legends? Martyrs? The room fell silent. Even among the council, doubt had taken root. On the bridge of a smaller council frigate, a young alien captain stared at the human warship. He remembered the stories told to him as a child, tales of humanity's cruelty, of their endless wars. But looking now, he did not see monsters. He saw courage. Look at them, he whispered to his crew. One ship against all of us, and they do not run. That is not madness. That is strength. One by one, ships across the fleet felt the same weight. Captains exchanged glances. Crews whispered. And slowly decisions were made, not by orders but by hearts. It began quietly. One ship powered down its weapons. Then another. Then another. On the wrath of Terra, alarms rang as enemy targeting systems went dark. The crew stared at their screens in shock. Some of the council's ships were refusing to fight. Alara's chest tightened. This was the moment she had hoped for. Not through blood, but through understanding. She opened the comms again, her voice calm but strong. You feared us because you only saw our past. But look at us now. We do not come with fleets. We do not come with chains. We come with one ship, one voice, carrying the dreams of a world denied. We ask not for mercy but for recognition. Humanity belongs to the stars. Her words traveled through the silence, through thousands of ships, through the hearts of countless beings who had never once questioned the council's authority. Now they questioned everything. In the council chamber, leaders raged. Traitors. They disobey orders. But no threat could silence the truth that had already taken root. Some admirals still prepared their weapons, but others refused. The fleets were no longer united, and without unity, the council's control was breaking. Inside the wrath of Terra, the crew wept quietly at their stations. They had built the ship to fight if needed, but in their hearts they never wanted war. They wanted a chance to live, to be heard, to see their children walk freely under alien suns. Alara closed her eyes for a moment, feeling the weight of history pressing on her shoulders. Generations had suffered, sacrificed, and dreamed for this very moment. Now it was here, balanced on the edge of a single choice. Would the galaxy see them as enemies, or as equals? The silence stretched. The fleets did not fire. More weapons powered down. The council's orders grew weaker. Finally, Alara spoke again, her voice soft but firm, carrying across the stars. You tried to bury us, but you did not know we were seeds, and now we rise. For the first time in centuries, humanity was no longer invisible, no longer caged, no longer ignored. The choice had been made, not fully, not by all, but enough. Humanity's presence could not be erased. The galaxy had seen them, and the galaxy had hesitated. The wrath of Terra had not fired a single shot, yet it had already won something greater than victory. It had won recognition. The wrath of Terra drifted in silence, a single warship surrounded by thousands of alien vessels. Yet in that silence, something greater than war had been born. Across the council fleets, confusion spread. Captains looked at their crews, and crews looked back with the same thought. Was this truly the enemy we were told to fear? One by one, weapons powered down. The stars grew quiet, no longer buzzing with the threat of destruction. Humanity had forced the galaxy to stop and listen, not with fire but with defiance. Inside the council chamber, chaos reigned. Leaders shouted over one another. Some demanded war. Others warned that the fleets were no longer obeying. "This cannot be allowed," one elder roared. "If we let humanity rise, they will spread and we will lose control." But another voice, older and calmer, spoke above the noise. "Control was never ours to keep. Look at them. We banned them, silenced them, left them to die. And yet they returned. They built a ship from nothing. If one ship can bring our fleets to hesitation, what will happen when they build 10? 100? You cannot kill such will. You cannot erase such spirit." The chamber fell silent, the truth too heavy to deny. Back on the Wrath of Terra, Commander Elara stood before her crew. Her voice trembled, not with fear but with pride. "They tried to bury us. They tried to erase us from history. But today they saw us. Today the galaxy knows humanity cannot be silenced. We are not asking for kindness. We are not asking for pity. We are demanding our place among the stars." Her words spread across the bridge. Some crew members wept quietly, others clenched their fists, hearts burning with hope. They were the children of a forgotten world, and now, for the first time, they were no longer forgotten. An alien transmission crackled through the comms. It was the young captain of a council frigate, the one who had first lowered his weapons. His voice was steady, though his hand shook. "To humanity, I do not know what future you bring. But today, you have shown us something the Council never taught us to see. Courage. Unity. The will to stand against the impossible. For that, you have my respect. My ship will not raise its weapons against you." More voices followed, one captain after another declaring their refusal to fight. Soon the Council fleets were split, divided between those who still feared and those who had begun to believe. The galaxy had changed in that moment, not with fire, not with destruction, but with a choice. Elara knew this was not the end. The Council would not forgive. The road ahead would still be long and heavy with conflict. But humanity had achieved the impossible. They had forced the stars to see them, and that was the beginning of everything. Back on Earth, billions waited. Every human heart, from the smallest child to the oldest elder, held its breath for news of the Wrath of Terra. When the first message came, carried through the void, it was simple. We are seen. We are heard. Humanity is no longer alone. The message spread like fire across the world. Cities lit up with cheers. Villages cried in joy. Families embraced one another. For the first time in centuries, the people of Earth looked to the night sky not with fear, but with pride. The Wrath of Terra became a legend that day, not only to humans but to every race that watched and wondered. Stories were told of the ship that stood alone against the galaxy, of a people who had been buried yet rose again, of a voice that spoke not for conquest but for recognition. And slowly, the legend grew into something greater, an invitation. Other species who had suffered under the Council's weight began to whisper the same question. If humanity could rise, why not us? The seeds of rebellion, of freedom spread across the stars. And at the heart of it all was one ship, one crew, one people who refused to vanish. Elara stood at the viewing window of the Wrath, watching the stars drift past. Her crew worked quietly around her, but for a moment she allowed herself to feel the enormity of what had been done. This was not just a ship. It was a promise. A promise to the past, that the dead who had been silenced would be remembered. A promise to the present, that humanity would stand, even if alone. A promise to the future, that no child born under Earth's sky would ever again believe their people were unworthy of the stars. The Council could delay. They could threaten. They could try to control, but the truth had already been written among the constellations. Humanity was here, Humanity had returned, and humanity would never again be ignored. The wrath of Terra moved forward, cutting through the dark, its engines blazing like the first dawn after a long night. For the first time, the stars belonged not just to the Council, not just to the ancient powers who ruled them. They belonged to everyone, and humanity. Humanity had claimed its place among them,